All right, guys. So the book of Ether, like ethereal. We start with Christ first showing his finger, which to me, if you think about popping the looking glass or piercing the veil, it makes sense that it happens with the finger, or that it would happen in that way first. And then you hear, or it goes into this sequence where some of the people are almost like, oh, how was someone chastened for 3 hours, or what is that like? And it's actually not that difficult to believe. Last Sunday for conference, I think a lot of our conference felt that way. And all that to say is that whenever it's easy to think about, whenever you break a flow state for 3 or 4 hours or what have you, the reconciliation period to go back into that kind of Christ baseline, that window that is it's like what the splitting of the sea mean, right? You have to cross. It's like the only way out of the pain is through it, right? So you got to cross that ocean or that sea. That's probably going to have a whiplash to whatever degree you deviated from it. Now, there's a prequel there with the Tower of Babel, and I think it goes back a little bit into what I was saying earlier with Apple, right? What was the Tower of Babel? If you think about today and think about neoliberalism in my earlier example, what we see today, or what I call the looking glass, it is a perfect black mirror or a perfect illusion that only works because it's so profoundly rooted in natural law. So Apple being the top S&P 500 company, think about the biting of the apple of the fruit being Luciferic, and then you think about the genius of Lucifer as well. It is by ritual that you can see that Apple in the jurisdiction of Lucifer becomes top of the S&P 500. You can see the clear ritual. So when you're piercing the veil, or when you're piercing the looking glass, Christ begins to show himself to you. And I think that part of it is pretty clear. Then there was a part about the boats, right? The airtight boats, or why those were there, and why there's 8. And when I thought about that, if you think about the earth being created in 7 days or 7 densities, and 8 boats that are air shut or sealed tight, to me, it's easy to think why, like the 7 days, but then the 8th one, it's like the resurrection, or the one ahead, or where we're at now in this dispensation. And then being air shut tight pertains to the safety, or the particularity of our safety within like our temple covenants, our temple garments and stuff like that. But it's the airtight nature of not being consumed or pierced or fall into the world, so to speak. And why those would be airtight. Now, our ward, or our stake, is starting over the Book of Mormon, which I'm really excited to do, because I think this time I will actually. The Book of Mormon is so profoundly riddled with so much, and if it's taught according to the dictates, or to the language of man, right? And beyond that, it's got a wrench, so that it's so profoundly true, and there's a wrench in there that you understand it in accordance to the degree by which you can contain it. So not only is it true, but also the wrench there makes it so that you can receive the truth based to where you are at in your journey and in your spiritual evolutionary process. So to close this kind of section, because there is so much, I do want to go back to Mormon, because it closes in the most interestingly profound section, when he talks about the nature of Christ, leading into and it's a little bit of a dream sequence or a lucid sequence. Then it goes into ether, or ethereal. The last thing I want to point out about what we covered today is the nature of, I think it was ether 310, where it goes into a freedom, or that the nation of choice, right, which is the free will tenant, and that it must be preserved. For that, it has to be burnt. And again, this goes back to the nature of the second coming, piercing the looking glass, building Zion, and the collapse of the fallen Tower of Babel, so to speak. But it most, because it's also this week, what I gather from that too is that this is the nature of why Joseph Smith ran for office. It's in section 3, which was also what I was talking about earlier with running for office and myself and Marianne Williamson. So with that said, guys, today was awesome. There is so much in every sentence that could be written into an entire dissertation of just one sentence, but these are some of the highlights that I picked out for today. So with that said, guys, all of my love your way.